In our interview, I spoke with the regional director of the UNFPA for West and Central Africa on how Nigeria can harness her demographic dividend. Mr. Mabinge Ngom, you're welcome to the program.
Morning.
Now let's look at Nigeria's population. You know, we already have reports that as at 2016, it was at estimated at 186 million, and that with the population growth rate of 2.6%. But in 2015 or 2050, we have reports that it would shoot up to 440 million. How do you assess this in terms of our human capital development?
Well, I would say that it's going to be a big challenge, especially given today's growing social demand and the need for government to respond to the needs of every single young Nigerian. So in terms of requirement, I think it will be an overwhelming social demand that need to be taken care today, especially as you just mentioned. I think the high population growth will come with a large number of requirements for individuals, for families, for government and their partners in terms of additional classroom, in terms of additional health facility, in terms of additional infrastructure that will require a lot of public investment. But the good news is Nigeria is now investing in harnessing the demographic dividend, and I want to start by acknowledging the leadership of the government, of the highest authority of Nigeria, for having launched the demographic dividend roadmap initiated by the African Union last year, but also for the very good step being taken to make sure that these young people, this cohort of young people, benefit, the investment they need so that Nigeria can reap a demographic dividend. But in a nutshell, with a very high population growth, I think challenges will be even more important, and there is nothing we can do better than investing in reproductive health services, investing in family planning, keeping girls at school, investing in education, but also promoting good governance so that we can maintain the momentum we can see today in Nigeria.
Already there are a few organizations researching on this topic, demographic dividend. So do you get that sense of seriousness from the government to harness Nigeria's demographic dividend, as it were, given the challenges we face?
Well, it's not an easy task, I must say, because it requires very well coordinated policy responses, not only in terms of health, especially family planning services, both in terms of coverage, but also in terms of quality of services, but also investment in education, because we know countries like India, for instance, that have made a lot of progress in terms of addressing the health challenges, but have not always been successful in terms of investing in the human capital so that they can, ensure what I would call a kind of a gain in productivity that will enable them to optimize their demographic dividend gains. But even if you do well in terms of health, very well in terms of education, you need also to do more in the human capital so that you train your people, your young people. And last but not least, you need also to make sure that you have very good governance, not only from a fiscal perspective, but also in terms of a very good coordination of your policies. So all in all, it's not very easy, and Nigeria is taking a very good step, and I think they need to do more, and they need to do much faster. But I am of the opinion that Nigeria is on the right track, especially given the good partnership Nigeria enjoys with organizations like the United Nations Population Fund.
You know, when you say much faster, that's, you know, an interesting term you use there, because again, Nigerians really wonder, what is the relationship between demographic dividend and the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals?
Well, I think you're right. When I say much faster, it's because the demographic dividend will happen within a window of opportunity. The window will not be around forever. And most believe that there is a case for an exceptional situation in Africa, because most countries have achieved the demographic dividend transition in a much shorter period.
What period are you referring to?
No, I would say that in Africa, people are thinking about a century, for example. That is too long. So we need to go much faster. That's one bucket. The other bucket is today we already see here in the Lake Chad Basin a lot of issues that are compounded around population issues, high population growth.
Yes.
And this issue cannot wait. Of course, we have to address what we see today in the Lake Chad Basin, but also we have to make sure that we deal with the root causes of the issue we see today, and there is no way we can address them as long as a woman will continue to have between 5 and 7 children. So we need to do fast, because even if we act today, the consequence of the delayed action we have experienced in the last few years will continue to be on our back. Now, coming back to your question about the demographic dividend relationship with the Agenda 2030, I keep saying everywhere around the world that we will not be able to win the fight to achieve the 2030 agenda or the 2063 agenda as the Africa we want, unless we invest in the demographic dividend. So 2030 can be summarized in one line. It's no one left behind. And you cannot achieve it if you have half of our women, half of our population, women excluded from the economic activity. We cannot achieve the 2030 agenda if girls continue to be married at the age of 13 or below. We cannot make progress if, for instance, we continue to have the high maternal mortality we experience today in Nigeria, 567 deaths for every 100,000 live birth. And if we talk about the northeast of Nigeria, it's 3 times higher. So you see what it means in real terms. So the no one left behind agenda, or the 2030 agenda, is not only about what we discuss in New York, but it's also about what it means for people in Borno State. So what it means in terms of fighting maternal mortality, addressing child marriage, giving opportunity to young girls, making sure that every woman everywhere in Nigeria and everywhere in Africa have access to family planning services, so they can make a meaningful contribution to the life of the people.
Tell us your experiences. I mean, you've been to Borno, and of course other areas surrounding that state. And I know that UNFPA is focusing on improving the newborn and maternal health and the rest of it. So how much challenge do you face in the Northeast?
Well, I think the challenges are really, I would say, there are a myriad of challenges. But if you want to be strategic, we can bring about meaningful change in the life of the people through a very limited number of interventions, because this intervention will really trickle down. One of them is, for example, investment in family planning. I just mentioned that maternal mortality rate is over 1,500 in the northeast of Nigeria. If we invest, for example, in family planning services, you cut at least by 1/3 maternal mortality. So you see how instrumental it is to invest in family planning. You address maternal mortality, you accelerate your demographic transition, without which you will never be able to achieve a demographic dividend.
But I thought we're achieving some success in maternal mortality.
No, there progress in maternal mortality in Nigeria, but I think it's slow. I think Nigeria can do much better if, for instance, Nigeria follows the experience of certain countries where government do more in terms of investment in family planning, but also the private sector. There is a very dynamic private sector in Nigeria, and we expect the private sector to do even more in terms of supporting this very important agenda.
Well, Nigeria is obviously hoping to make a lot of progress by 2030, especially to achieve the SDGs. Thank you very much, Mr. Mabinge Ngom, thank you for joining us on Dateline.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your mails and tweets as always. Keep sending in your comments and views using the email address and Twitter handles on your screen. Also, be sure to share anything happening within your locality. Don't you forget, you can view the program on youtube.com/channelsweb/videos. Thank you for watching this week. I'm Gloria Umezuki. See you again.